Hey folks, Aaron from Passport Prep here. Today we're going to talk about one of the questions I get all the time, and is a pretty good question. Why is my SAT math score not going up as fast as I want it to? So yeah, that's frustrating if that's happening. So today we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the 5 biggest reasons your SAT math score is kind of stuck. All right, stay tuned. We'll get to it. So number one reason your SAT score is not rising as fast as you would like it to, you are rushing. Yeah, you are. I know you think you're going too slowly. I know that. Everybody thinks they're going too slowly. But probably you're rushing and making silly mistakes that you don't have to. For most students, silly mistakes, easily 50, 60, 80 points worth of errors on the test. So if you can slow down, if you can fix those silly mistakes, then you're going to do a lot better on the long run. You were learning a new song on the piano or the guitar or the flugelhorn or whatever it is. You wouldn't start practicing that song at 100% speed right from the first time you were learning it, right? You would slow it down. You would take your time. You would go take it to half speed until you get it really down, and then you bring it up faster a little bit, and then a little faster, and then a little faster. And it's the same thing with the SAT. When you're practicing for the SAT, slow down. Get the stuff down so that you can learn the techniques, you can learn the content, you can learn the skills that really pay off on this test. Then later, you can get faster. But if you try to go fast right from the beginning, you're always going to have mistakes in your technique and in your process. And you're always going to make silly mistakes you don't have to. So, number one reason, if I could wave a magic wand and fix one thing for most of my students, it would be the rushing thing. All right, number 2 reason that your SAT score on the math side might be a little stuck, might not be where you want it to be. You're not reading carefully. Wait a minute, am I in the wrong video? Are we on the reasons your reading score isn't going up video? No, we're on the reasons your math score isn't going up. Most people think that the math test is a math test on the SAT, and it's just not. Yes, there are some math things that you need to review and some math skills you need to show. But when students really get comfortable on the math side of things on this test, it's because they realize how much it is a reading test. How much of it comes down to, can I be careful on this question and answer exactly what it's asking? Not what I think it's asking, but exactly what it's asking. Reading carefully is a huge, huge part of scoring your best on the math side. Because the SAT loves these long, complicated questions. You know, they'll be like, Jim has 7 horses and 2 horses run away, and then he gets half as many horses that come back. And then at the end of the question, it says, how many cows does he have? So slow down, read more carefully. Those are the 2 biggest reasons your SAT math score is probably stuck where it is. All right, cool. Number 3, you're not being flexible enough. You know, if you're taking a test in school and the test is about the Pythagorean theorem or the circle formula, and your job is to go in there and study the Pythagorean theorem, study the circle formula. And if you do that, then you get to the test and you're like, cool, this question I'll use the circle formula and I'll get it right. And that's awesome. And that's how school usually works. In other words, in school, we're not really taught that flexibility is important, but on the SAT, it's super important. The more ways you have to attack questions, the less likely you are to get stuck. And getting stuck is super frustrating, because if you get stuck, you're probably getting that question wrong, and you can feel the time kind of burning, right? But we don't care about that, because we know that we're probably rushing, so we don't care about the timing. But if you have multiple ways to attack questions, you're always better off than if you only have one way. One of the biggest things I work on with my students is, how could we have gotten this question right in 2 or 3 different ways? Because if you can do that, then when you get to the test, you're always going to have an option. You're always going to have a way forward. And that's really important on this test. All right, cool. Number 4, you haven't mastered the techniques that pay off on the SAT. There are certain things that just pay off a lot on this test. Using real numbers instead of algebra. Looking at the answer choices and saying, are any of these too big, any of these too small, or any of these in the wrong format? These are super powerful techniques on the SAT that will get you more points, I guarantee it. But most students never really master them. They sort of say, oh, that's cool, and I see how it could work, but how do we really do the question? Meaning, how do I do it in sort of a mathy way, I guess? I'm not really sure what they mean by really do the question. Your only job on this test is to fill in the little bubbles. You know what I mean? It's not like a test in school where your teacher looks over it and like if you didn't do it the right way, she only gives you half credit or something like that. I don't know. all that happens is you bubble in the thing and the computer reads it. And if you bubble the right thing, you get the points. And if you don't get the points. So if you go into this test and think, oh, I'm going to do all the math correctly, you're missing out on a lot of stuff. It's not really a math test. There are techniques that pay off in terms of getting you right answers, in terms of crossing off wrong answers that can be really powerful. And if you don't master those, then you're leaving points on the table. I guarantee it. So that's number 4. You're probably not mastering the techniques that really pay off on the SAT. And number 5, my last of the top 5 reasons why your score isn't going up as much as you want. You're getting bogged down. Now, wait a minute. You might say, wasn't number 1, like, I was rushing? Like, now you're telling me I'm going too slow? What is this guy talking about? But if you think about it, they're really two sides of the same coin. Most students are going too fast on a lot of questions, and then on a question here or there, they're getting bogged down. And they're sitting and they're staring and they're taking 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes on this one question. And that never does you any good. For a couple of reasons. Number 1, all the questions are worth the same number of points. So even if you get that question right in 6 minutes, you could have used those minutes to get like 3, 4, maybe 5 other questions right. And so it doesn't make sense to let yourself get bogged down on any one single question. I have students, sometimes they'll take 8 minutes on a question because they're just like, I really want to get this one right. It's better to get that one wrong in like 2 minutes than to get it right in 8 minutes, because you could use all the rest of that time to go and find other points, other questions to get right. So for most people, their timing is out of whack. They're not spending enough time on easy and medium questions, and they're making silly little mistakes they didn't have to make. And then they're spending too much time on the hard questions and just sort of staring at them and not making progress. So what you want to do is you want to spend most of your time on the easies and mediums and really, really hit those out of the park. It doesn't really matter if you're shooting for like a 550 or a 700. You have to do as well as possible on the easies and mediums. Most people, there's at least a couple of questions where they're getting bogged down and it's ruining their timing. All right, guys, so that's it for me today. We had 5 reasons your SAT math score is not going up as fast as you want. Number 1, you're rushing. You're going too fast. Slow down. Slow down and master the techniques. And you know what? You won't have a timing problem at the end. Number 2, you're not reading the questions carefully. Difference in answer A versus answer B could be one word in the question. You know, maybe the question says all, and you thought it said most or something like that. Okay, now you got the question wrong. Again, it often comes down to one word, one phrase, one way of reading the question. Be more careful. Read more carefully. That's what this test is about. Number 3, you're not being flexible enough. You're seeing a question and you're thinking, oh, there's only one way to get this and I don't know it, so I'm out of luck. Probably not. There's almost always more ways you can approach these questions. So try to be more flexible. Number 4, you didn't master the techniques that are specific to the SAT. So take some time, and just work on identification. Where can I use these techniques? And what should it look like on my page when I'm doing these techniques? And then number 5, you're getting bogged down on some hard questions. No single question is worth 10 points. Every single question is worth the same. So take your time and do things carefully. But if you're getting bogged down, change gears. Guess. No matter what, you always have at least a 25% chance of getting it right, even if you just guess blindly. So there's no sense in staring at a question for 5 minutes when you could have just guessed and done a handful of other questions. All right, guys, those are my top 5 reasons your SAT math score is staying the same. So change them. One of the cool things about this test is you can change all these things. You can slow down. You can read more carefully. You can be more flexible. You can build these things into your game, and you can do better on this test, I guarantee it. So that's what I wanted to say for today. Thanks for joining me, and we'll talk soon. Bye.